So recently, a bunch of unaired pilots found their way online, dating back to the 90s. What I want to do is look at these pilots and determine two things. 1. Did it have potential? And 2. How different would popular culture be if this pilot was picked up for series? Today we're opening up the pilot vault and looking at the pilot for a show called Gilded, a show that was intended to be America's version of Downton Abbey. Downton was huge a few years ago, and we saw it hit certain heights that I'd never seen a show hit before. Even my nan loved that show, it was absolutely everywhere. So it makes sense that America would try and recapture that same spirit. So they decided to give it a multi-million-dollar budget and made their own costume drama, but it obviously wasn't very successful, and it never made it past the pilot stage for reasons we'll get into in a bit. So the plot of this show was the story of a complex, wealthy family, and it's set in New York's first luxury hotel in 1895. The pilot opens with the Imperial Star ocean liner, similar to how Downton began with news that the Titanic sank. It's weird how they both start with famous ships, isn't it? They're trying desperately to be Downton. We see a group of guys playing parlour games to pass the time, and this one guy keeps winning all the bets. The guy he's betting against calls him names, and our main character, Johnny, does a Marvel quip, and everyone claps. This is the second pilot we've looked at that starts with an "and then everyone claps" moment, playing chicken being the first. We reveal that Johnny is a waiter on the ship, and he has a bit of this Jack and Rose moment with a rich passenger named Violet Lily. They're going for an upstairs downstairs meets Titanic kind of thing. Her brother comes along. We know this is her brother because he says, "There's my sister," which is how every writer without siblings thinks siblings talk to each other. Someone at dinner mocks Violet's glasses, which gives her a moment to stand up for herself and point out how she's not like the other girls. There's something weird about this. The actors all look like they're acting. Like, rather than actually delivering their lines, they're just reading them out. Like there's a rhythm to them like Shakespeare. But the writing isn't good enough to have any sort of rhythm. So it just feels like I'm watching a bad play. Johnny takes Violet to look over the water. It really does feel like they were trying to be Titanic. We then arrive in New York, and some guy says, "Isn't she the most beautiful woman you've ever seen?" talking about the Statue of Liberty. To which Johnny replies, "The second," talking about Violet. Way to be on the nose there. Do you reckon he fancies her or no? I'll tell you what, this writer has never heard of being subtle before. Violet has gone missing and everyone is searching for her, but Johnny stalks her maid to find that Violet is hiding in one of the changing rooms. She didn't want to leave the ship. Right, how long did she think she was going to be able to hide from them? What was her plan here? We then cut to the hotel. The tallest hotel in the world. And we get this one shot of old New York. Gotta sound like the Doctor.
New York.
Oh, come on.
It is.
But this one shot is beautiful. It's clearly done with some kind of matte painting, and I'm kinda sad we didn't get more shots like this. Johnny decides to get her off the ship, despite hinting at some legal trouble Larry's in, because he wants to be with Violet. So we go to her hotel in New York. We then meet this lady, played by Gwyneth Paltrow's mother, and John Barrowman. Barrowman was signed up to play a major part in the show, and Gwyneth Paltrow's 69-year-old mother plays the family's matriarch. Now, Barrowman had really high hopes for this show. He was hoping that this role would finally establish him as a household name in America. They really did believe that this was going to be the role of a lifetime for everyone involved. So they were obviously disappointed when the network decided to replace her with a show called The Gilded Age. Another attempt to make an American version of Downton Abbey. Oh, look who it is! It's Madeline Zima from Californication and The Nanny. She's great in everything, so it's lovely to see her on board here. Some of this green screen work is a bit junky, isn't it? Hopefully it's only like that because it's a pilot and he was gonna iron it out in post. Violet then finds out that her father has married her off to someone as part of a business exchange. We have a bunch of fancy talk about how the Lily family are about to be more public than they used to be. It used to be just one guy who wrote about them in the papers, but now that they're opening a huge hotel, every reporter is free to talk about them. But this is a future we don't have to worry about because this is only a pilot. We never got to see any of that. They say upstairs, downstairs, and Abbey in the same sentence.
What you don't understand about boundaries between upstairs and down, it's going to get you into trouble. You mark my words, Abby.
This show really does wear its influences on its sleeves, doesn't it? Johnny walks in and basically just tells him that he wants to work there, and that's fine. He's a dishwasher there now. The hotel then prepares for a big moment. The first guest in the hotel. Is it only me who is getting Dunstan checks in vibes? I know this hotel is meant to be proper fancy and stuff, but it genuinely does just remind me of the hotel from Dunstan checks in. I half expected Jason Alexander to pop out. Barrowman does some shouting to try and get himself a Golden Globe. What is it with white men shouting about being angry that always rakes in the awards? One of the kids starts itching and is told to stop. Is this some horrific disease that was coming in the 19th century that I'm not smart enough to know about? I tried googling it but I couldn't find anything. But I guarantee you now, I'm gonna start getting targeted ads about this fictional itching disease I apparently have. Then some guy with a stupid name proposes to Violet. I think his name is William Fitzwilliams or something, terrible name. But then she notices Johnny and ignores this Fitzwilliam guy. Some guy comes up to Johnny and mentions that they know about his dark past. Apparently his real name is McCoy. I wonder if he's related to the Hatfields and McCoys. If this pilot had been commissioned for a full series, then there's no doubt we would have explored this, but as it is, I've got no idea who he is or what he was going to be. Barrowman wants to be an equal partner in the hotel because he essentially made all the glamorous stuff happen, but the head of the Lily family refuses, instead making some other guy his partner. It's all a bit melodramatic, people caring about stuff that really isn't important. Barrowman then makes somewhat of a drunken speech in retaliation, where he tells everyone that he's going to make his own grand hotel next door. Barrowman is fine in this, and it certainly would have been interesting to see him being petty and building a spite store as if he's Larry from Curb. Jack and Rose, Johnny and Violet share a kiss but then part ways. Johnny then goes upstairs to meet with the guy who told him his real name earlier, and he finds him dead. Dun dun dun. And he's arrested for murder. It's clear he didn't do it because of the face he made when he first entered the room, but but that does mean that if this had gone to series, it was going to be some type of like murder mystery, which, don't get me wrong, is a solid idea. Downton Abbey meets Cluedo. I'd be on board for that. The pilot episode was made with no expense spared, but the show was dropped without even screening the pilot, and no one involved will say why, but insider gossip claims that John Barrowman was considered by the network to not have a big enough profile in the US to carry a show, which is kinda sad if it's true, because he's great in Doctor Who and Torchwood. Gilded Lilies was dead in the water, but in its place rose a similar costume drama, this time set in the 1880s, called The Gilded Age, and who better to write and produce it than the creator of Downton Abbey, Julian Fellowes, and the rest, I suppose, is history. This pilot was left to gather dust before being leaked online a few weeks ago. So where does this pilot rank among the other unaired pilots I've talked about? Well, I wouldn't say that I enjoyed it as much as Rex Is Not Your Lawyer, so it's below there. See, it's difficult sometimes ranking these because I've got to compare dramas to comedies, and it's quite tough. Overall, what I'm looking for with this ranking is the general quality of the show, so I'm gonna put it in front of Manchild. I think that's fair enough. Right, do you want me to talk about more unaired pilots? If so, leave a comment below letting me know which one I should watch next, and subscribe, help us reach 4K. Right, I'll let you go, bye.